There's a lot of change happening in real estate right now. You might be wondering, do I need to work with a buyer agent? Well, you're not alone. As a result of the real estate settlement that's been in the news over the last few weeks, beginning this summer, all home buyers and agents must sign a buyer representation agreement. The good news is this will benefit both buyers and buyers agents. I'll tell you why this agreement and committing to working with a good buyer's agent is essential in San Mateo County and an unintended consequence you may need to watch out for. What is great about the buyer representation agreement is buyers will be better informed to make choices about what type of representation they want, the scope of the representation, how much participation or involvement they wish to have with their agent, and a bunch of other things that you can discuss up front with your agent. Buyers will have more confidence to say, what is your value? How are you going to navigate this complex real estate transaction for me? What is your experience? How many times have you done this recently? I think we'll see a move by buyers who perhaps hadn't given serious thought to the variation in quality in real estate agents to viewing this selection process perhaps in a different light. Because buyers will now be required to formalize their relationship in the beginning, buyers are going to take their selection of a buyer's agent much more seriously and also feel like they have a lot more agency in the process. There's going to be buyers who say, hey, I can do everything on my own. I know everything about the area. I understand disclosures and condition, and I don't see value in paying more than a nominal amount to an attorney or a limited service buyer's agent to prepare a purchase contract. Perhaps we'll see more of that. I don't know. You would think as a result of the settlement, we'd see an expansion of a menu of services offered to a buyer where you can choose and pay for what you want. However, buyers have been free to do this at least since the beginning of my career, and I've been doing this 18 years. We've seen local companies like Unlocked, Really, Redfin, and countless others offer significant rebates of previously offered buy-side commission back to their buyer in exchange for more limited services. The market share of these companies has been negligible and perhaps could grow, but I think that could remain a niche service. Ultimately, in my experience, it seems like most buyers in San Mateo County want a high-touch, personalized buying experience. I wish it was a lot easier for buyers to understand an agent's track record of selling homes in an area. It's not easy right now to access this information. On the flip side, just because someone sells a lot of homes in an area doesn't mean they're the best fit for you, or even that they're a high-quality agent, but at least it gives you a starting point. Not all dues-paying realtors would like this information out there, but I don't think it's something we need to hide. When I was a new agent, all my clients knew I was a rookie agent without a long track record, but they trusted me and knew I'd put their interests above mine. And it took me a while to gain that knowledge and experience to take my practice to the next level, but that's part of building any business. So this information can be viewed a little differently. I'm Raziel Unger, and I've been ranked in the top 5 agents in San Mateo County and the #1 agent in Burlingame for over 8 years. I've represented hundreds of buyers like you, and I've been working with a buyer representation agreement with my clients for over 15 years. If you're thinking about making a move within or to San Mateo County, I'd love the opportunity to chat with you. So there's an unintended consequence of this new rule. First of all, if you want to see any home by private appointment, you're going to need to engage with an agent, which is fair. It's always been like that. And if you want to see it at the open house because you're just trying to get a sense if you want to live in that area and see what homes are selling for, or if you're a neighbor, you aren't going to need to sign anything. But we are going to see buyers at open houses who aren't yet working with an agent be presented with marketing materials, incentivizing them to work with the listing agent as your buyer's agent if you want to buy that home. The listing agent may offer to handle both sides of the transaction for not much more than what the seller is paying them already. This is called dual agency. The buyer may feel that they've saved on commission by having the same agent do both sides of the transaction. The agent can sell this to their seller as, hey, you only have to pay one person to deal with this, and I can seamlessly manage this whole transaction like one-stop shop. But what happens when in the middle of the transaction the swimming pool springs a leak? I've had that happen. Or when you visit the home with your designer to measure for your new furniture and the neighbor a few doors down approaches you and tells you about the issue between the seller and the other neighbor next door that the seller didn't think to disclose. How's your agent going to handle that one? How is it that California law says that an agent can be a fiduciary to two parties with competing interests at the same time? I don't really know. And it's kind of surprising in such a progressive state as California that this is even allowed. I've actually heard some stories anecdotally over the last month or so from agents who are very excited about this possibility, and I don't feel good about it. I think in this scenario, the only person who wins is the listing agent. I actually have a lot to say, no surprise, about dual agency, and you can probably sense how I feel about it, but stay tuned for another video about that. So I want to talk to you now about the buyer representation agreement, and there's 3 documents that buyers are going to need to know about. The first document you'll want to be familiar with is called the agency disclosure. This form is required by the California Civil Code to be presented by the agent to a prospective client whenever you have a conversation about a transaction. And it says you should understand what type of relationship you wish to create. Whether you're a buyer or seller, you'll probably agree seeing this document at the very beginning is a good thing for everyone. The best relationships begin with an open conversation around expectations. Then if you look a little bit further down in this document, you can see the first two sections talk about some basic obligations of an agent to a client. Agents have the same obligations of honesty to all parties in a transaction, which makes sense. In my view, this document is a fantastic document because it just highlights some basic responsibilities in the beginning around trust and honesty. Historically, many agents have not presented this document to their buyers in the beginning of a relationship and instead chose to include this document with the purchase contract when the client submitted an offer. In my view, that's too late and not fair to the client for obvious reasons. I know this because I've been the second agent for many of my clients, and when I presented this document to them, they told me it was the first time they were seeing it. The next document is the multiple agency or representation of more than one buyer or seller. This is also a boilerplate document from the California Association of Realtors, but an equally important one. And all buyers and sellers sign this one in California when they're doing a residential real estate transaction. This one is a heads up to the buyer that their agent might be working with another buyer who could be looking at similar homes as you. Now, you might not be thrilled your agent could have another client interested in what you might be interested in, but you might also not fault your agent for having other clients too. Agents and buyers need to have an open conversation in the beginning about what will happen if and when this happens. What if two clients see the same home? What if the same two clients request disclosure packages? What if both clients then wish to submit offers on the same home? These are things to consider as part of your decision-making process, and I've had all of these happen dozens of times, and I've had these conversations hundreds of times with my clients, and I've yet to have anything other than a, hey, thanks for sharing that with us, Raziel. Your process makes sense, and it feels comfortable to us. The third document is the buyer representation agreement. It's an exclusive agreement between the agent and their buyer, which would formalize the relationship between both parties. It spells out the duties and obligations of the buyer's agent to their buyer. And it's very similar if you're engaging a CPA or an attorney or any other professional service that you would expect to sign some type of paperwork. I really love this document because it brings up so many important things about what agents can do for their clients. So it's an opportunity for you to learn more about that, and also what agents can't do. For example, we don't survey the property. We're not engineers. I mean, there's a lot of guidance that we can provide our clients, but ultimately that's not our responsibility. There's a lot of things that we can advise our clients on, but some things we're just not experts in. And if it's something that we don't know, we should tell you. In my view, every relationship comes down to trust. And from that trust, what else should a buyer consider in choosing their agent? So you're going to want to ask them, what is this home search process going to look like if I'm your client? How do you help me assess the value of a home? How can you help me understand the difference in location between different properties? How can you help me successfully negotiate this transaction? How are you going to manage the closing experience between a lot of different professionals from contract to close? How do you prefer to communicate? This is just a quick snapshot of some things that I think are really important. And in a future video, I'm going to share with you a lot more questions that you should ask. A strong agent should be able to set your expectations and help you feel comfortable every step of the way. Heck, I remember when my wife and I bought our first home. I was 30 years old. I've been saving my whole career to scrape together enough for a 20% down payment. And then we competed with 5 or 6 offers way over the asking price. And I was a total nervous wreck, and I do this every day. After the offer was accepted, I drove over to the house and unlocked the door using my realtor key. I stood inside and I cried tears of joy. I felt so many emotions. I was proud, I was elated, but I was also super freaked out. Like, what did I just do? I knew it was the right choice, but I still had these feelings. So I can only imagine from all of you how tough and stressful you might feel this process can be. We barely slid into that house with our savings, and it was so old and outdated that as a housewarming present, my parents even gave us a new dishwasher. A seasoned buyer's agent will also make sure that you don't overpay on the house. I've had many transactions as a listing agent where I had many offers, and the offer we accepted was from the least experienced or knowledgeable agent who advised their clients to pay a massively high price. And then the buyer felt like they got a deal because their agent rebated them a large part of their commission. Will we see situations where buyers sign agreements with their agents and then the relationship goes south? Absolutely. Maybe the buyer felt like they were going to have a certain experience, but the agent, for whatever reason, didn't do a good good job, didn't communicate well, or didn't make the buyer feel like they were the agent's only client. And that's super important. You need to make sure that you feel like you're your agent's only client. It will be important for buyers and their agents to talk about these things in the beginning and how they're handled. Now let's talk about commission. The other big thing in the settlement is that the data field in MLS for buyer's agent's compensation offered by a seller is going away, meaning that sellers cannot offer compensation directly to a buyer's agent anymore. Sellers can, and I believe still will, offer compensation to a buyer's agent. However, it may be in the form of a concession from the seller to the buyer, and then the buyer will pay their agent directly. It will now be up to buyer's agents to determine what their value is, share that fee structure openly with their prospective client, which is not rocket science, and then the client can decide if they feel that is fair. There may be times where what the seller is offering as a concession is in line with the buyer's agent's fee structure, or it may be different or lower, and the buyer in their contract can ask the seller to pay a certain commission to their agent, or the buyer may choose to pay that difference or a combination of that. We'll see how that plays out. And that's how the business world works. A professional can say, hey, here's my fees or rates or commission. And then the consumer can say, hey, that's awesome, that resonates with me, or now I just want something else. Some clients are going to want the 4 seasons of representation, and some may want the Holiday Inn. There's room for everyone. If you can't tell already, I'm pretty excited about buyer representation agreements, what they are, and why they're a good step forward for the industry. If you're a home buyer, hopefully you'll realize it gives you a lot more agency earlier in the process than you may have felt in the past. You deserve the best representation. Personally, I've been working with my clients for over 15 years with buyer representation agreements and signed hundreds of them. It's just part of formalizing a basic relationship. For more about the 7 common misconceptions as a result of this settlement, check out this video. If you're thinking about buying a home, I'd love to be a resource for you. Text me, email me, or give me a call. I've been working with buyers in these agreements for over a decade. I've been ranked as high as the number 2 buyer's agent in San Mateo County. And if this resonates with you, you know what to do. We're happy to answer any questions that you have, as there's a lot of misinformation out there.